Hey everpeoples, how is it going? Well, it's about near midnight tonight, and I just got back from watching X-Men First Class, and, how do I put this in, purely, academic terms? It was fucking awesome! Oh my god, that was amazing. Pretty much redeems the series in my eyes, because, you had the first two. I liked the first one. The second one was... It was pretty good, though it lacked, mutant-on-mutant battles. The third one... You know what? Nothing really needs to be said about the third one. And then, yeah... Let's never mention Wolverine. Ever. Ever. But, that's actually something the movie brings up, because, basically... I don't want to give too much away, but, certain things in the events of the movie basically make X-Men 3 and X-Men Origins Wolverine impossible. And I'm not going to give too much away. Basically, because I think that this is such a great movie, I'm going to spoil a lot less of it so that you guys can, get up and see it yourselves. So, long story short, it's, this is a very, very early prequel. Set in, Cold War era 60s. And it basically chronicles Charles Xavier and Eric Lencher, who would become Professor X and Magneto, respectively, meeting for the first time, becoming friends, and basically forming the X-Men. And you've got them on the one side. On the other side, you have Sebastian Shaw, played by Kevin Bacon, who's basically got his Hellfire Club out to start World War III. Now, I have absolutely no idea why. Okay, no, scratch that. I do know why. Basically, he thinks that mutants come from humans being exposed to radiation. And he thinks if he can irradiate the world, he basically can create an entire new race of mutants. Well, no, an entire new wave of mutants that will worship him as a king. Okay, nice plan. You're full of shit, Mr. Shaw, but whatever. We can deal with that. So, how to go about this movie. It's really kind of a fun ride, and, it actually keeps... It kind of plays out sort of like a 60s spy movie. In fact, Eric, in his young adult phase, actually kind of plays out like Daniel Craig's James Bond. And actually, that's kind of what it's like having the two in the same area. It's like, Magneto is Daniel Craig's James Bond, and Professor X is either like Connery or Brosnan James Bond, or Matt Smith's Doctor from Doctor Who. It's actually really fun how they sort of play off each other. Now, I'm going to say this right out, the acting is across the board wonderful. Like, I can't say enough about it. It's just spot on, save for one part. Emma Frost, the White Queen, I'll get to her in a bit, she doesn't quite have a lot of range. Like, she's competent and she does what she needs to do, which, when you're the White Queen, is basically look hot and turn people's brains into giant bowls of porridge. But the thing, though, is she doesn't really have a lot of nuances in acting. Like, there's this one part where someone shows her something, I forget what it was, but it gets really close up on her face, and she does not look in the least bit surprised. Like, her eyes don't even change. I don't think her eyebrow even raises. She's just like, oh, impressive. See, I can't do it. I saw my eyebrow. God, what to say. So much to go into, and I'm gonna try to keep it shorter, because Pirates was a really long vlog, and I don't think I can ask attention of everyone for that long. But, so, there were some interesting things. I think a lot of comic diehard fans are gonna really tilt their heads a bit because the X-Men lineup of the first team does not really match a lot of the early X-Men, which sort of makes sense because we've seen most of the X-Men in their young adult phases, so good chance that most of them aren't even born. Like, on the team you've got Banshee, who they apparently couldn't get an Irishman for. That was the one thing that griped me. I was like, why couldn't you just get a guy who does a decent Irish accent? Like, don't get me wrong, Banshee's ginger as all fuck, but, you know, the accent's missed. Speaking of Banshee, though, no, getting to the rest of the team, you know, Banshee, Havoc, Beast, of course, and Mystique, who, as far as I know, has never been on the X-Men, but it did give some really nice character development. Like, honestly, Mystique has this whole love square going on. It's like, you know, she kind of has the hots for Charles in the beginning. Eric, for some reason, has, well, there's no for some reason about it. It's fucking Mystique. You'd have to be blind or a goat to not find her attractive. But I've just never, in all my years of X-Men, huge fan, by the way, seen any real romantic spark between Magneto and Mystique. So this just kind of played off as weird. And, on top of that, she and a young Beast, who is not yet transformed for the majority of the movie, you know, kind of have sparks flying in their own way. So, yeah, Mystique's got her whole thing going on. Speaking of whom, though, like, Mystique is brilliant in this movie. Like, every scene she was in just broke my heart. Like, she really had this whole thing down. Like, she knows how to convey the most subtlest convictions of pain. Lol, vocabulary fail. And I just found this out. The actress who plays her was the star of Winter's Bone, which should have won a freaking Oscar, in my opinion, but whatever. So, yeah, it makes sense that she could pull off something like this. As for the villains, though, or the Hellfire Club, they're cool, but, you know, I don't exactly let their personalities shine through, which, to be fair, is pretty prevalent throughout the entire X-Men series. That said, though, when they're cool, they're cool. One guy in particular, he doesn't get a lot of lines, but this guy, I think they call him Riptide. He's got this whole, like, tornado in a jar thing going on. Like, he controls vortexes of air or water. He just goes like, just swishes it around, and boom, everybody's fucked. You know, got him. And something that really surprised me was the inclusion of this teleporting guy called Azazel. And this is one of kind of the ballsier moves that the movie pulls. And I'm going to explain why. Basically, this is a bit of spoilers, not for the movie, but for the entire mythos in general. Azazel is Nightcrawler's father, and to make a long story short, he's not very popular in comics. In fact, the only story where he comes up and says, "Hey, I'm a demon who's been alive since the fall of the angels, and I just happen to be Nightcrawler's dad," is pretty much one of the least popular stories in the X-Men comics. Right down there with this one crazy church is trying to make Nightcrawler the Pope so that they can assert dominance and kill all the mutants. Yeah, it doesn't make sense in context either, believe me. But yeah, including him was kind of a gutsy move, and God, he's cool. Like, he doesn't get a lot, but he kind of plays out like a really dickish D&D player. Like, his some of the stuff he does is like, he grabs people, teleports them up into the air, and just drops them down. And there's one point where he's attacking the CIA that he just does this en masse, and it's just like, and far, far away, you can hear someone taking photographs and is like, hey, yeah, and then posting them on 4chan. Yes, super dickery now has a new definition. So, apart from that, there's actually another character I haven't really gotten into, Moira McTaggart. Now, this may not strike a lot of chords in people's brains, but she's basically Professor X's childhood friend. She's mentioned a bit in the third movie, but, you know, isn't given a lot to do. But she is another character who is also woefully missing an accent. Shame. And she's an interesting character. Like, she's kind of the everyman that gets introduced. She's a CIA agent that basically, when she finds out what Shaw is exactly doing, she's the one who comes to Xavier, who at this, and basically is like, hey, I read this cool thesis you wrote on, you know, genetic mutation, how it's the next step in evolution. And Xavier, who's totally trying to hit on her, is like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, seriously, we need your help. And she's basically in charge of getting him on board. And you could kind of blame her for exposing the world to mutants and basically kicking the hornet's nest that is the X-Men we know today. But she's also pretty good. Like, she's, again, she's kind of the everyman. She's got this whole range of things she's got to do, but most of the time she kind of worries about everyone. But when she's badass, she's pretty badass. That said, though, I'm not gonna spoil it, but I don't think the fate that her character got in the end was very well deserved. Yeah, that was a damn shame, but she was pretty damn useful in the end. Oh, wow, it's so hard to, like, go on a while without ragging on a movie, but I'm gonna talk a bit more about stuff. Like, this is a movie that actually, like, kind of embraces the X-Men mythos as a whole. Like, the first movies were trying to sort of rationalize it, and this one kind of does too, but it embraces the silliness of it. And it also kind of has some fun little tidbits going around. Like, there's actually a very... you're probably going to miss it, but there's a cameo of Storm in there. And I was actually really surprised. Not as surprised as I was with the other cameo, and I'm not spoiling that one for the world. You're just going to have to see that. But, you know, that was nice. The suits they wore, I think, were, like, reminiscent of the very, very early ones, where Cyclops looked even more ridiculous than he does now. You know, you had the early Cerebro, you had the early Blackbird jet, and there's also some other stuff in there. There's the Azazel thing, which I mentioned. You know, we see Beast pre-Blue-Furred form. By the way, I'm going to talk about that. Like, Beast was a very fun character. I really liked him. Something that struck me, though, was that after he transformed, and I'm sorry if I spoiled that for anyone, but I didn't think it was necessary to omit something that, you know, was shown in the freaking trailer. But after he transformed, there was a shift in his demeanor. Beforehand, he was, like, really awkward. He's like, oh, thank you for your, you know, for these tests, Raven, Mystique. You know, you're the nicest person I've been able to examine. I mean, scientifically examine. You know, not that you're not, you know, pleasant to look at, but, you're sort of an academic, you get the idea. And then, when he transforms, he becomes much more snarky and a lot angrier at times, but then again, he's basically of the mindset that, you know, he's basically doesn't fit in to anything. Like, he doesn't like his mutation at all. and when he gets all blue and furry, he gets a lot worse. And a lot snarkier for it, too. Like, they're just going around, they're doing their thing, and he's just like, and, you know, they get a near miss with some missiles and stuff, and he's just like, you know, Professor, you could stand to warn me next time. And I'm waiting for the part where he takes the snarkiness up to 11 like he did in the animated series. And, you know, if he ever fights Pyro, like, just cuts his gas tubes, and he's like, now, you shouldn't, now, combustible materials are not to be played with. I love Beast. My whole family loves Beast. But I should probably get into some things that I wasn't so crazy about. Like, some of the effects were a little weird. Beast's blue fur form, like, looked a little silly, but I didn't mind it too much. Like, a lot of people hated it. I didn't. It was just about right. The scenes, before I get to that, there was actually some point that kind of made me scratch my head. Like, when Charles Xavier is, you know, talking to people, more specifically talking to the villains, they get into debates and start presenting, like, very clear-cut points. Like, Sebastian's like, you know, these people are just going to turn on you. They're not worth the time it takes, and all this stuff, and White Queen does her thing, and Professor X is basically like, no, that's stupid. It's like, come on. They're presenting valid arguments. Come on, debate with them. Convince them. But no, he's just like, that's so pathetic. That's so juvenile and unidealistic. You know, be gone, be gone, be gone. Yeah, Xavier, yeah, he really needs to work on his demeanor, which, you know, he probably has time to work on after the fact. The scenes when they were kids, those really struck me as weird. Like, there were only 3 of them, but, you know, one is the one that some people may remember from the first movie, where young Eric is, you know, being put in a concentration camp and separated from his parents, tries to reach them and winds up pulling the gate down. The other is when Charles comes to a young Mystique, or finds a young Mystique, and, you know, for one thing, his acting's a little wooden, you know, and also the sort of surprise he has of, you know, finding this new mysterious blue creature in his midst. He's just like, wow, don't worry, little girl. You will never have to hide from anyone again. You can stay here with me, and we will have joyous adventures. And I'm just like, okay, good luck explaining that to your parents. Like, hello, Mum, we have a new sister. Don't mind the bluishness, or the, whateverness that she is today. Just accept that we have a new member of the family. Like, there was that. And then there's a scene where Sebastian Shaw is basically, you know, trying to get a young Eric to use his powers. And he does so by basically pulling a rather rancid move that's pretty high on the shit you do not do list. Well, that's giving away too much. Let's just say it's something that would get a young Jewish boy who's been starved and mistreated very, very pissy. And, you know, Eric kind of snaps. There are a few things that are going on with this scene. Like, first of all, he goes nuts and just starts, like, crushing everything metal in the area. And, you know, including the helmets on, like, some SS guard's head. And all the while Sebastian's just going, marvelous! Magnificent! Oh, those men, those were some of the finest Gestapo officers we could have ever gotten. But oh my god, they're so magnificent! Oh, their brains are on the floor! Oh, it's brilliant, brilliant! Second of all, he really didn't think this was going to happen. Like, okay, you know what? Fuck, I'm gonna spoil it. He shoots Magneto's mom. Yeah, no. That's That's brilliant. Yeah, oh, you have someone who pulled down a gate, and your first instinct is to shoot his mum. Okay, there's a little more to it than that. But, point being, you know, all this metal stuff is flying around, and I get it, Magneto can't control it, but he doesn't even attempt to throw anything at Shaw. And then, when all this is going on, he's just, Sebastian's just like, wunderbar, wunderbar, little boy, and even, like, puts his hand on his shoulder. I'm like, you're a fucking moron. That. And then he leads him into a medical room where there are metal butcher knives hanging on the wall. This seems silly. Okay. But, the biggest point, the biggest thing that turned that scene from, you know, heartbreaking to kind of silly is that, you know, Eric is letting out this huge agonizing scream for like a minute, and at the end it turns out that it was just a big 9! And I may burn in hell for it, but I think that was funny. About Sebastian, though, they do take a bit of creative liberties for him. In the comics, his power is basically, he takes the force someone uses against him, and he redirects it at them. So, like, if someone punches him really hard, like if Colossus punches him really hard, he's just like, thanks for the tip, buddy. BAM! And they'll be through a wall. In this, they change it up a bit to be more like, he takes in energy as a whole, like, he holds a grenade in his hand, and just has it explode, and he absorbs it. And when he does, there's this weird effect, like, this sort of rippling effect, except his, like, parts of his body seem to duplicate. Like, one part where he's absorbing the, like, explosions and stuff, his arms, like, duplicate into, you know, it looks like he's got 6 arms. At one point, his head splits into 2 different heads. And it's like, I guess I get it, they're going for creative license, but it just comes off as, like, as just really weird. Honestly, what would be really funny is if he actually took the energy and made more limbs for himself. He's like, ha, suckers, now what? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yeah, shoot at me more, awesome. Oh, hey, so that's what it feels like to have 6 fingers. Yeah, I am Shiva, god of death. Everyone bow down before me now. Oh, what a nuke? Okay, wonderful. Yep, thanks, geniuses, you just cloned me. Yeah, it looked a little weird. And apparently, he uses the energy he absorbs to keep him young, hence why he's looks the same as he does in the 40s as he does in the 60s. Now, back to stuff I do like. White Queen. Finally, they get her right. Like, X-Men Origins Wolverine freaking butchered her. Like, all they played up was, you know, the whole, oh, she can change her skin into diamonds. And apart from that, they cast someone in that movie that was not drop-dead gorgeous. And I'm sorry, but when you're casting the White Queen, you've got to go drop-dead gorgeous. Otherwise, how are you going to justify Cyclops making out with her over Jean Grey's grave? I'm not kidding. That actually happened in comics. Yeah, Marvel's mentally bankrupt. Anyway, but yeah, in this movie, they get her drop-dead gorgeous. They have the whole skin turns into diamonds thing. It doesn't look like shit, and they actually remembered, yes, she's a telepath. Like, everyone forgets that. White Queen is psychic. That she can basically liquefy someone's brain if she wants to. And this they actually play up a bit. They actually have her nearly, I think, give Eric an aneurysm. But apart from that, she's done really cool. She's got the whole femme fatale thing, but she's not as snarky as she could be. Also, I don't think that her clothes turn into diamonds with her. Like, that's another bit of creative license. Another thing that kind of struck me, oh yeah, we get to see, a man named, Stryker in the CIA, offices, which made me smile, because if you all remember, Stryker was Wolverine's handler, as it will. But, yeah, again, as I mentioned, acting is great across the board. You really get to capture a lot of the human moments. Like, you really believe that Eric and Magneto... Eric and Xavier really care about each other, even, towards the end. And you really get the feeling that this, even though they've got, they're destined to go different paths, they still do care for each other in the end. Also, when you get them in the same place, you actually get the feeling of the different kinds of inspirational men that they are and that they're going to become. Like, Eric has a thing, like, he can get people's drive, going. Like, he inspires them in a way. He's like, you are better than the rest. How can you expect people to accept you if you can't accept yourself? Be the person you were born to be, stuff like that. Xavier, he's got the thing about bringing out their potential, which, he's more of a teacher. Like, that's the thing. Magneto is the guy who gives speeches, and Xavier is, well, a professor. He's able to bring out, the control that, these mutants are lacking. Which, it works. In order to tell an origin story, you have to keep, basically, the inspirational traits alive. Like, you've got to show how they started at, like, you gotta show the leadership potential in both of them. And this movie does. And it was also, on that note, very fun to see a prototype Danger Room. Anything else? I think that's mostly covers it. Okay. There were two more things that kind of bugged me. First of all, 3 things. And one extra thing. I'll get into the extra thing. Like, there's one girl who I think is kind of a canon foreigner. Her name's Angel. No, not the angel with wings, but, like, she's an angel with insect wings. And, god damn, that woman is tough. Like, she takes things like kind of a bamf. Like, in the final battle, she takes a shockwave to the face, and she just keeps flying. And this is like, normal people on the ground would probably have a concussion. She's fine. She's like, oh, what, you're gonna hit me in the face? Yeah, no, please, nothing like that. Oh, you're gonna, like, snap my ankle? Yeah, fuck you, I'll keep walking. Oh, you're gonna cut off my wings? Yeah, no, I'm fine. Oh, I'm sorry, you're gonna peel off my skin? Oh, that's no different than a tan. Yeah, I want to see more of her. I think she should have been given a little more to do. What little she was given, you could kind of see the gears turning. Things that bugged me. One, there's this guy called Darwin. He's kind of basically, I'm not going to beat around the bush. He's the token black guy of the cast. And he was another one of those guys who wasn't given enough to do. He's still cool. He just could have been so much cooler, and, I realize why he wasn't as cool as, like, the effects for his powers, which is basically, he adapts to any situation. Like, you stick his head in water, he'll grow gills. You hit him with a metal rod, he'll gain an armored carapace. But, I guess, like, you couldn't keep those effects going throughout the entire movie, so they couldn't make him as awesome. Second, during the end, there's a point where a ship carrying nuclear missiles is approaching the embargo line to Cuba. Basically, spoiler alert, though it's not a big one, Sebastian Shaw basically instigates the Cuban Missile Crisis. And, if they cross the embargo line, they're gonna get shot. And there's a part where the Blackbird, or the X-Jet, whatever you want to call it, crosses the embargo line quite a few times, and nobody fires at them. Like, okay, I can understand, like, maybe the U.S. people calling in and say, hey, what's going on there? And someone would be like, oh, there's a CIA agent on board. Why wouldn't the Russians fire? Like, that kind of bothered me a bit. Another final thing was that Banshee, like, he had this demeanor that made me want to punch him in the face. Like, he was a good character, but, God, something about him, he's like, he embodies douche, kind of. I mean, granted, Havoc embodied douche as well, which in itself is kind of interesting. Like, they've got Havoc, but they haven't introduced Cyclops yet. So, I'm wondering how that's going to work out since, you know, they're brothers. And, oh, by the way, I hope I didn't spoil anything, but that's pretty much common knowledge in comics, so I figured get that out of the way. But yeah, Banshee just has this demeanor like, okay, dude, okay, I can scream, that's awesome. Dude, no, don't! Oh, damn it, you pushed me! Oh, hey, cool, I can fly. He's just like, this, kind of the stoner kid with braces that just, like, made me want to reach into that screen and smack his little ginger face around. Fuck you for not being Irish. That's about it, really. I can't think of much else to say, but quite honestly, this is amazing. Like, this is well worth the money. And quite honestly, this needs to do well. Like, I was a little sketchy about Pirates. This needs to do well. Because quite honestly, I don't want to live in a world where Wolverine makes its money back, but this, something that's actually trying, and directed by people that actually give a shit. You know, tanks. I get it, okay? You know, Scott Pilgrim tanked pretty hard. I get it. It wasn't reaching out to a demographic. But come on. It's freaking X-Men. Everybody knows X-Men. I love the X-Men. I hope you love the X-Men. Like, anyone who grew up in the 90s probably knows and has some childhood with the X-Men. On that note, though, don't you think it's kind of silly that the X-Men never had their own catchphrase? Like, the Avengers had Avengers Assemble, and, you know, Superman had Up, Up, and Away, and the Fantastic Four had Johnny, wait, don't go there! But yeah, I don't know. X-Men, rally up! Doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Oh. Another thing that I really liked, like I said, there's a lot of thing that, you know, they kind of embrace the canon or the heritage, but one thing I really liked that I don't think other people got was, Sebastian, when he was doing his thing. He, by the way, slimiest villain ever. It's, like, so awful, so, like, well, of course, he's a former Nazi, and, you know, he's got the racism thing going. Like, when he's trying to pitch to the young X-Men, he's just like, you know, aren't you all tired of being slaves? And he stares right at Darwin, you know, the only black guy in the room. Fuck you, Shaw. But, yeah, he calls mutants the children of the atom, and that actually made me smile, because for those of you who don't know, Children of the Atom is the name of an X-Men fighting game for the arcade. And I think I spent a bunch of quarters playing that. But all in all, you should really see this movie. If I had to give it a number rating, I'd say it's 9.8 out of 10. It might have made it onto my favorite movies list. I don't know, because quite honestly, apart from the acting, apart from, like, Mystique just breaking my heart. It's like, oh god, she's been through so much. It's not fair. Apart from that, dialogue is crisp. The scenarios are believable. There's no real fat to trim. It's just beautiful. And I'm a little worried that it won't make its money back, because you know what? I felt betrayed by Wolverine. Fuck X-Men Origins Wolverine. But you know what? This is not X-Men Origins Wolverine. This wipes the slate clean. And quite honestly, you need to see it. If you are an X-Men fan, if you liked any of the other X-Men movies, hell, if you didn't like the other X-Men movies, this might win you over. Like, quite honestly, this is just great. Like, it's funny, it's witty, it's kind of ballsy in a lot of areas. But, quite honestly, yeah, just get out there, see it, it's worth the money. Alright, this is Colin Eldred-Cohen, evolving and signing off.